so happy to have you here. You look good. So, I'm so glad to know that we're all collectively unwell about Heated Rivalry. So, I welcome you to sit down and grab a cup of tea, grab a snack, or lay down in bed, close your eyes, and listen with your gay ear holes. And we start off with Chapter 6. Once again, I am qualified to read this because I'm a gay-ass lesbian. Without further ado, here is Chapters 6 through 12. Chapter 6. In January 2011, Nashville. Ilya swiped his keycard for the third time and his hotel room door finally unlocked. Once inside, he fell back on the king-size bed with his arms outstretched, pleasantly buzzed from the drinks he'd consumed at his all-star team's dinner. He had expected to be on a team with Hollander, since they played in the same conference, but the league had decided to change it up this year and have North American players form one team and European players form the other. No secret as to why. The league couldn't get enough of the Rosanov/Hollander rivalry. Ilya was close to making good on his promise to score 50 goals by the end of February. He had already scored 38. Hollander had scored 41. Fucking Hollander. Ilya had spotted him in the lobby earlier that evening, but that was it. No words had been exchanged. He hadn't even gotten a nod of acknowledgement from him. Ilya wondered what Hollander was doing right now. He wondered if there were any cute girls at the hotel bar. Was Hollander in his own room, lying on his bed? Was he wondering what Ilya was doing? Why was Shane Hollander so fucking hard to shake? They'd hooked up once, months ago. It had been a mistake, obviously. A giant, ridiculous mistake. Or, at the very least, something that should be forgotten about. Not a big deal. On the ice, it was easy enough to focus on the game. Ilya actually loved playing against Hollander. He would actually never tell him, but Hollander was really fucking good. He challenged Ilya in ways that Ilya wasn't used to. He loved taking the puck from Hollander. He loved slamming him into the boards. He loved skating around him. He loved shit-talking him because his eyes would get all squashed up in anger and his pink lips would curl into an adorable little attempt at a snarl, like an angry kitten. Okay, it wasn't entirely easy to focus on the game. And after the games, and all the days between their games, when Ilya had watched Hollander being interviewed with his lovely fucking manners and his adorable, boyish smile. When Ilya watched him play against other teams and watched how he moved with flawless, calculated grace, Ilya heard him switch effortlessly between perfect English and perfect French at press conferences. When Ilya thought about how eager his mouth had been back in that hotel room in Toronto, he didn't even have Hollander's phone number. He'd see him tomorrow night. Shane should have been expecting the press conference. Saturday morning, the day of the All-Star Skills competition, he had received a phone call from someone from the NHL's PR office telling him that there was a short press conference scheduled for that afternoon, 2 o'clock. It would just be him and Ilya Rosanov. Why? Shane had asked. It's your first All-Star game. You're both having legendary rookie seasons, and besides, the press loved the idea of getting you two together. Shane had flushed a little, so now he found himself sitting behind a raised table, staring at a room full of reporters and cameras. That part was very familiar, and didn't cause Shane any stress. The large Russian man next to him, who was sitting so close their forearms were almost touching where they rested on top of the table, was the one responsible for Shane's dry mouth and probably noticeable stammering. Good. Perfect. La color makes me listen. Beautiful. More laughter. Shane watched the way Rosanov was slowly rubbing the knuckle of his forefinger with his thumb. He probably didn't even realize he was doing it. Rosanov had nice hands. The questions kept coming, and they were all exactly what Shane had been expecting. He did his best to answer them, and even chanced to glance over at Rosanov's profile next to him. His curls poked out from under his all-star game ball cap, and his jawline was covered in stubble. He was wearing a V-neck t-shirt, and Shane could see the glint of his gold chain where it disappeared beneath the fabric. Shane turned his head abruptly back to the reporters. He took a sip of his water and sat back in his chair, except now he had an even better view of Rosanov and the way he was hunched forward over the table. Shane could see the muscles in his back and shoulders straining against the thin material of the t-shirt. Sorry. Shane snapped his eyes forward. Just a quick one from the Toronto Star. Would you like to play on an all-star team with Ilya in the future? Oh, sure. Yeah, he took a breath. Ilya's a great player. Ilya, same question. If Hollander does not mind me being starting center. Yes. Shane made a show of rolling his eyes as the room laughed. He clasped his hands together and rested them on the table in front of him, leaning over his microphone as he awaited the next question. Rosanov's elbows were resting on the table too. His left elbow was almost brushing Shane's right. Shane could swear there was an electric current in the narrow space between them. He felt like the hair on his arm was standing up. Both Montreal and Boston have been out of the playoffs for 3 seasons now. Do you guys feel the pressure to restore your team's legacies even this early in your careers? Shane rubbed his arm and furrowed his brow. He turned his head and saw that Ilya was looking at him, and his face showed that he was hoping Shane would field this one. Rosanov probably only understood about half the words. Shane thought it was a pretty stupid question, honestly. He said, I can't speak for Rosanov or what it's like in Boston, but I know the fans in Montreal love their team and definitely are expecting us to turn things around and get back in the playoffs and win some cups. And, I feel the exact same way, so I guess my answer is that I don't really feel any pressure that I'm not already putting on myself. He hoped that satisfied him. Unfortunately, the reporter didn't pick up on the fact that Rosanov was clearly struggling with understanding the question and said, Ilya? Rosanov said. Walt Hollendor said, yes. He gave the room one of his playful smiles, and everyone laughed again. Shane looked at him, and Rosanov caught his eye and winked. Shane pursed his lips to stifle a grin. Under the table, he felt Rosanov's foot tap against his own. It was the chastest contact in the world, but it still made Shane's heart stop. The press conference ended. Both men stood as the room erupted into the chaos of dozens of people packing up recording equipment. Shane offered Rosanov his hand, and Rosanov shook it. When Shane released their handshake, Rosanov slowly slid his fingers along Shane's palm. I'll see you later, Hollander, he said in a tone that was far more suggestive than it should have been. Shane swallowed. Yeah, later. Shane allowed himself a moment on the ice to take everything in. The NHL's All-Star Skills competition was held the night before the All-Star game. It was a chance for the stars to show off and try to prove themselves the fastest skater or the hardest shooter. It was just a laid-back, fun night, and no one took it very seriously. But he was here, damn it. He was a rookie, and he was an NHL All-Star. He could be a little proud of himself. All of the players from both teams were on the ice now, clustered in front of their respective benches. Some of the players kneeled as they waited for their events to be called. Others stood and chatted with their just-for-the-weekend teammates. The league had been less than subtle about their desire to see Shane and Rosanov go head-to-head in one of the competition events. That event ended up being the shot accuracy competition. Rosanov went first. The net had 4 foam bullseye targets, one in each corner, fastened to the goalposts. When the timer started, the object was to break all 4 targets with shots from the blue line as fast as possible. The league record was about 7 seconds. When the whistle blew, Rosanov wasted no time. He broke the first 2 shots, then missed the next one, then cleanly broke the bottom 2 targets with his 4th and 5th shots. 8 seconds. Shane shook his head and watched Rosanov play to the crowd. Rosanov skated around the ice, holding his stick like a rifle, celebrating his skills by pretending to shoot at the rafters. Shane skated up to replace Rosanov on the blue line, and Rosanov came to a stop right in front of him. Sorry about that, Dolindor. You think I can't beat that? Rosanov just winked and nudged Shane a little as he passed him. Shane heard the crowd's delighted reaction. Fuck it. Fuck him. Shane could do this. He could do this with his fucking eyes closed. The whistle blew, and Shane just locked onto those targets. He watched each one burst apart with 4 perfect shots. 6.7 seconds. The crowd went wild. Shane threw his arms over his head and celebrated more than was probably necessary or sportsmanlike, but it felt good. He smirked at Rosanov as he skated back to his teammates. Rosanov wasn't smiling now, but the look in his eyes was... Shane flushed and turned his attention to his teammates. His contribution to the competition completed, Shane could now just relax and enjoy himself as he watched the others battle each other. Shane flushed and turned his attention to his teammates. His contribution to the competition completed, Shane could now just relax and enjoy himself as he watched the others battle each other. He would like to say his gradual movement down the line in front of the bench where the 2 teams met was not deliberate, but that would be a lie, and it seemed he wasn't the only one making that journey. Shane leaned casually against the boards at the end of the bench, pretending to focus on the players competing for hardest shot instead of on the man who was standing a couple of feet from him. Nice job, Polindor, Rosanov drawled. Thanks. Have fun last night. Last night, with your teammates, dinner somewhere, get drunk. Shane looked down at the ice. Oh, yeah, it was fun. How about you guys? Lots of fun. No fucking Canadians or Americans. Was perfect. He turned his gaze to Rosanov's face. No one wore helmets for the skills competition, since there was no actual body contact, and Shane could admire the profile of his chiseled jaw and the soft curls of his hair. Going to bed early tonight, I think, Rosanov said suddenly. Shane's mouth went a little dry. Oh, yes. They stood in silence, watching the action on the ice. Loud music blared and the crowd cheered as another record was broken. Rosanov leaned down. His breath ghosted over Shane's ear when he said in a low voice, 12:21. A shiver ran through Shane's body, and before it had even left him, Rosanov was gone. Shane watched him skate down the ice to talk to a fellow Russian player. Shane hoped he wasn't blushing. The fuck did Rosanov want? Asked Liam Casey, a defenseman for Pittsburgh. Nothing, Shane said quickly. Just shit talking, you know. Guy's a fucking asshole. Yeah, he said. Ilya wasn't surprised at all when the knock came. It was late, after midnight. He had been back in his room for almost 2 hours. Hollander pushed into the room as soon as Ilya opened the door. He turned and flipped the bar latch as if someone were going to burst in any moment. Ilya decided to drop the act. "You came anyway," he said. "Yeah," Hollander said, his voice tight and full of forced courage. "I guess I did." Ilya nodded, and then Hollander swore under his breath and lunged forward to kiss him. He grabbed Ilya's t-shirt in a tight fist and pulled him closer. Ilya moaned at the hot slide of Hollander's tongue against his. He tugged roughly on the hair at the back of Hollander's head, tipping his head back so he could deepen the kiss. They broke apart, and Hollander looked at him, eyes wild and dark hair a mess, silently begging for instruction. "On your knees," Ilya said softly, just to see what he would do. Expecting Hollander to tell him to fuck off, Ilya's breath caught in his throat as he watched him sink fluidly to the floor. He gazed up at Ilya. Those onyx eyes, always so sharp, were hazy with desire. Hollander leaned forward to nuzzle and mouth at the bulge in Ilya's sweatpants. "Christ, Hollander," Ilya breathed, gently pulling at Hollander's hair as he pressed hot, open-mouthed kisses to the fabric that pulled tight. He felt dizzy and less in control than he wanted to be as Hollander tucked fingers into Ilya's waistband and pulled him down until he was freed. Hollander didn't hesitate. He dragged his tongue up. Ilya couldn't even make a smart remark. He just gasped and let his head fall back, completely overwhelmed by Hollander's need for this. He certainly didn't have the ability to conjure English words right now. Hollander reached a hand up and slid it, fingers splayed, under the hem of Ilya's t-shirt. He pushed the shirt up until Ilya took the hint and pulled it off over his head. He carefully stepped out of his sweatpants, Hollander's mouth, and planted a hand on the back of Hollander's head. He was careful not to hold him too firmly in place. This wasn't control. Ilya just wanted to touch him, to let the silky strands of his hair slip through his fingers as Hollander gave in to what he had clearly been craving. Hollander's hand wandered as his touch was light and curious, his fingertips almost tickling Ilya as he poured his thighs and hips and around to his ass. Ilya wondered how far Hollander was willing to go with him. He wondered if he'd done anything with another man since their last time. The desperate, unskilled motion of his mouth and the slight tremble in his hands suggested that he hadn't. The idea that Ilya was probably the only one who ever saw him like this, that he was the only person in the entire fucking world who knew what it felt like to have those pretty pink lips wrapped around his... Ilya swore in Russian and pulled away. He grabbed Hollander by the front of his shirt and hauled him up, kissing him roughly before throwing him on the bed. He wanted to know how much he would give him tonight. Hollander stared up at him, eyes wild, lips dark, and wet and parted. His hair was everywhere. Hollander just stood there and watched him toe off his sneakers, never breaking eye contact. Hollander was breathing heavily, as if he wasn't one of the most physically fit people on the planet. Ilya bit his lip and watched him pull his shirt off. In seconds, Ilya was covering him on the bed with his body and kissing him hungrily. Ilya had always been this way. He loved sex, and he loved it more when it was dangerous, when it was someone he knew he shouldn't be with, whether that was his coach's son, or his brother's girlfriend, or his teammate's sister. Ilya couldn't resist a bad idea. And Shane Hollander was a bad fucking idea. The worst idea. Wrong in every way imaginable. Two men. Two NHL players, poised to be the two biggest stars in the league soon enough. Two bitter rivals on opposing teams that had hated each other for almost 100 years. Plus, Ilya hated this guy. He hated his pretty boy face and his perfect goddamn English and his perfect goddamn French and his loving parents and his polite little manners and his $1,000,000 smile. He hated how serious he was, how earnest. He was everything the league wanted from their stars. Ilya kissed his dumb mouth and swallowed his stupid little sighs and felt his annoying fingers in his hair. He pulled back so he could look at his horrible face with its ridiculous freckles. Fuck. Ilya kissed him again so he wouldn't have to think about him. He wanted to fuck him. God, wouldn't Hollander let him fuck him? They kissed each other frantically, rolling and taking turns straddling each other and pulling off what was left of Hollander's clothes in the process. Ilya kissed his weight down his body and took him into his mouth. Hollander's hips jerked off the bed, nearly forcing Ilya off him, but Ilya held on. He let his fingers trail down. He tapped one finger against his... waited for a reaction. Hollander's body stilled on the bed, so Ilya drew light circles around his hole. Just a casual suggestion. He could feel Hollander tense up. He was completely silent now. Ilya pulled his mouth off him and looked up at his face. "Have you ever?" Ilya asked. Hollander shook his head. "Would you like to?" "I don't know." "You are scared?" No, I'm not scared." "It's okay to be." Hollander exhaled loudly. "I'm not scared," he said again. "Have you ever touched yourself?" Ilya asked, circling his finger again. "Here." Hollander's face flushed bright red and Ilya grinned. "Jesus Christ," Hollander muttered. "You are embarrassed." "Well, you don't play with your ass. It makes you gay." "Oh my... You know what makes you gayer?" "Rosanov, shut the fuck. Sucking my dick. You were doing that a come to your house and fuck you. Hollander looked embarrassed again. It's an apartment, he mumbled. Jesus, fine, I will fuck you in your apartment. Can we get back to things now? Yes, Hollander frowned, but in the shower, the water will drown out anything. Rosanov huffed, but it was actually a good idea. Yes, he said, springing off the bed and onto his feet. But hurry the fuck up. Hollander shoved him as he walked by, leading the way to the bathroom. He turned the water on, and as they waited for it to get hot, Ilya kissed him against the closed door until Hollander shoved him away so he could pull Ilya into the shower. He slammed Ilya against the tile. As he kissed him, Ilya grinned against his mouth. This was the Shane Hollander he wanted. Competitive, aggressive. Your hands are so soft, Ilya said, like a girl's. Fuck you, Ilya laughed. Hollander, as if trying to prove how strong and masculine his hands were. Ilya bit his own lip and gave up teasing his rival, for now. He reached for Hollander, and they brought each other off frantically and roughly in the shower, letting the rush of water muffle their English and Russian profanity. Hollander got dressed quickly when they were done. Ilya stood with a towel wrapped around his waist, waiting to hear what Hollander would say. Ilya didn't say anything back. He waited. I know he said about Montreal, but... Ilya crossed his arms and leaned against the wall. We probably shouldn't, Hollander finished. No, I mean, obviously, right? Ilya watched Hollander run a nervous hand through his damp hair. It's stupid, Hollander said, more to himself than to Ilya. This is stupid. I don't know why we did this. Again. Ilya walked slowly towards him. When he reached him, he put a hand on the side of his face and tilted his head until he could look directly in his eyes. Give me your phone. My phone, Hollander asked weakly. Yes. Hollander fumbled the phone out of his pocket and handed it to Ilya. Ilya took it and entered his number into Hollander's contacts under the name Lily. Hollander snorted when he saw it. Who should I be? He asked as he picked up Ilya's phone from the dresser. Shannon. Jane, Ilya said. Jesus Christ, Hollander muttered as he typed. No, just Jane. Hollander glared at him as he handed his phone back. This isn't a yes, just so you know, he said. It will be. Hollander shook his head, but Ilya could tell he was fighting a smile. Good luck tomorrow, Hollander said. Sure. Hollander turned to open the door, but stopped. Hey, you want to take a look out there and see if the coast is clear? Ilya couldn't quite translate his words. Sorry. Just take a look and see if the hall is empty. I don't want anyone to see me coming out of your room. Ilya opened the door enough to stick his head out. Empty. Hollander blew out a breath. Okay, well, bye. Good night. Hollander nodded and left. Chapter 7. February 2011, Montreal. 15 minutes on the treadmill, and Shane still couldn't get his brain to quiet down. He had a very nice gym in his apartment, which was close to the Voyageurs' practice rink in Brossard. Some younger players shared apartments or houses with other young teammates, but Shane preferred to live alone. He had been under intense focus since he was 16, and it had made him cling to whatever private moments he could steal. Also, he walked a dangerous line with his teammates, as it was. His status in the hockey world had a tendency to make his teammates understandably jealous. He was sure any tension would only be made worse if he lived with any of them. Shane was supposed to be focusing on the game that night against Toronto as he pushed his body on the treadmill. Instead, he kept thinking back to a certain Russian's promise to come to Shane's home, and there were too many things to process. Ilya Rosanov had gotten him off in a hotel room again. Ilya Rosanov wanted to sneak out of his team's hotel the next time they were in Montreal, next week, and meet Shane at his apartment so he could fuck him. Ilya Rosanov wanted to fuck him. Shane was both terrified and undeniably aroused by the idea. Undeniably, extremely aroused by the idea, but that didn't change the fact that it was a really, really bad idea. Shane had accepted the fact that he was more than okay with having sexual encounters with a man. Fine. He had suspected that about himself for a while now, and maybe Rosanov was just the first man to see that in him, to offer him the chance to experiment a little. So what Shane actually needed to do was find another man to fool around with. But who the fuck was that going to be? This was Montreal. He was Shane Hollander. If his career went the way he was planning, that situation was only going to get more impossible. He definitely didn't want any rumors of his sexuality, whatever it was, getting out there. The NHL liked to pretend it was inclusive now, but Shane knew what it was like on the ice and in the dressing room. There had never been an openly queer NHL player, and homophobic slurs were thrown around enough that Shane couldn't imagine that happening. Outburst was going to have to be brave as hell. It sure as shit wasn't going to be Shane. One thing he was certain of about Rosanov, he wasn't going to tell anyone. He had as much to lose as Shane did. As far as Shane could figure, he had three choices. Forget about fucking men entirely and just stick to women. Risk finding men, or even just a man slowed the treadmill to a cool-down speed and grabbed his water bottle. Yeah, no, okay. He definitely had to end this nonsense with Rosanov. He made it to the NHL and was at the very beginning of what he hoped would be a very impressive career. A giant fucking scandal probably wasn't the best way to kick things off, and Shane couldn't see a way that they could possibly keep this thing quiet if it continued. Why was he even thinking about that? A long-term secret relationship with Ilya Rosanov? Was that what some part of his dumb brain was hoping for? No, definitely putting a stop to this. This was just Shane being 19. He was 19 and horny and oddly lonely for a star athlete. Just because Rosanov was making himself available didn't mean Shane had to accept it. Pleased with his decision, he stepped off the treadmill and headed to the chin-up bar. There would be nothing to it. Rosanov would text him to ask for his address, and Shane would write back, no. The next week, Montreal. Lily, I need your address. Shane, no. Shane smirked at his phone, very pleased with his prompt and clear reply to Rosanov's text. Lily, f off. What is it? Shane, none of your business. Lily, fine, your loss. Shane stopped smirking. He sat down hard on his couch and turned on his brand new lamp. The Bears would roll into town the day after tomorrow. They would play later that evening, and then Shane chewed his lip, thinking it's not that he didn't want to see Rosanov. If he was being honest, he'd been obsessively thinking about it since the All-Star weekend. He just didn't want his arch-rival coming to his home. That seemed like too big of a line to cross. He wrote back, could we meet somewhere else? He felt a flush of embarrassment as he hit send. God, why couldn't he just have left it where it was? He'd successfully rejected Rosanov. Why give the power right back to him? Lily, like where? Shane, I don't know. Lily, figure it out. Let me know. Shane hated how relaxed Rosanov was about all this. It wasn't fucking fair. He almost wrote back, forget it, but instead just stood and slipped his phone into his pocket. He would figure it out. Shane, 1822. Lily, question mark. Shane, room number. Lily, okay, where is the room? Shane, same hotel you're in. Lily, see you soon. Shane sat at the end of his king-size hotel bed. Then he stood up. Then he sat back down again. This was so fucking dumb. Why was he doing this? Booking a room in the same hotel as the entire Boston team. Several floors above theirs, but still. So he could hook up with a man he didn't even like. If they were caught, it would be devastating to both of their careers. At the very least, it would be very embarrassing. Shane stood and went to the mirror. He checked his teeth and nudged a straight lock of hair back into place. There was a sharp rap on this door. He spun around, startled by how loud it sounded, and quickly crossed the room to open it. Jesus, you trying to get everyone's attention? Rosanov slid into the room. His ball cap was pulled low over his eyes. Shane closed and latched the door quickly behind him. You're nervous, Rosanov said. It wasn't a question. No, Shane lied. It's just 6, hold on door, Rosanov said. I know. Rosanov pulled the ball cap off and brown curls tumbled out, falling messily around his grinning face. He was wearing a charcoal gray shirt with a small Nike logo on the chest and black track pants. Shane was wearing dark blue pants and a striped cashmere sweater and felt ridiculous. You look nice, Rosanov said. His tone was flat, like he was just stating a fact rather than offering a compliment. You look nice. It's cold outside. The hotel is big. Thanks, Shane said, because he had to say something. I feel overdressed. Yes, you both are, Rosanov said, and he pulled his t-shirt off over his head before bending to remove his high-top sneakers. Shane's eyes fixed on the way Rosanov's gold cross tangled in the space between his knees and his chest. The thin chain glinted against the back of his neck. When Rosanov stood again, Shane couldn't remember why exactly this was a bad idea. Come here, Rosanov said. No, you come here. Rosanov grinned and shook his head and stepped towards Shane. Shane must have taken a step forward himself because they kind of crashed into each other. A second later, he was against the wall, and Rosanov was attacking his mouth. Shane shoved back against him and was reminded that Montreal had won that game that night. Rosanov had to be at least a little pissed off about that, and Shane felt he might be taking it out on him. Shane had no problem with that. He sank his fingers into Rosanov's bicep and hauled him closer. He wrapped his foot around Rosanov's ankle, and Rosanov growled and, without warning, grabbed Shane's thighs and hoisted him up the wall so that Shane had no choice but to wrap his legs around the taller man's waist, which Shane should have been angry about, but instead he gasped and kissed Rosanov even more wildly. Could fuck you just like this, Rosanov growled. Against the fucking wall. You would like that, yes. Would Shane like that? Probably. Not tonight, Rosanov continued. eager slut he apparently was. He felt Rosanov chuckle against his throat, and then Shane felt himself being pulled away from the wall to the bed like a fucking child. Put me down, asshole. Shh. I can walk. Rosanov's big hands gripped his ass as they crossed the room. Shane pushed back off Rosanov's shoulders, and he could see that crooked smile in those playful eyes. Put me down. Rosanov turned and dropped Shane on the bed. Shane glared up at him. He was about to tell him off, but he got distracted by the tall, bare-chested, muscular form looming over him. Shane suddenly felt very small on the bed, which was ridiculous. He was 5 feet 10 inches and built of solid muscle himself, but Rosanov was gazing down at Shane, who was still fully clothed, like he was trying to decide where to take his first bite, and Shane felt vulnerable, and he was kind of into it. Rosanov slid his track pants down and off and stood at the end of the bed wearing only his black boxer briefs, his gold chain, and his stupid fucking bear tattoo. Shane's eyes went right to the briefs and the hard leg that was strapped beneath. He also noted the way Rosanov's enormous thighs burst out of the legs of the shorts, hard muscles jutting out from the straining fabric. Rosanov leaned down and planted a knee firmly on the bed between Shane's broad legs, dangerously close to his crotch. Shane looked up, wide-eyed, as Rosanov descended on him and captured his mouth again. 2 big hands landed on Shane's chest, stroking him over his sweater. "This is soft," Rosanov murmured. "It's cashmere," Shane said, stupidly. "Yes, take it off." He did. Rosanov pulled up, keeping his knee firmly between Shane's thighs as he watched Shane strip down to his own briefs. He lay there, waiting for Rosanov to cover him again, to press his weight down on him, but instead, Rosanov lightly dragged his fingertips up one of Shane's legs, tickling his skin and making every hair stand up. He drew a path up to where Shane's skin disappeared into the leg of his briefs, then paused. Shane felt like there was an electric current running through him. He could see his in his shorts, begging for attention. He bit his lip and waited. Rosanov's mouth found one of Shane's nipples and bit it gently before licking it. Shane squirmed, and Rosanov wrapped a hand most of the way around Shane's thigh to hold him down. Shane once again marveled at how big his hands were. When Rosanov returned his mouth to Shane's, he finally moved his hand to palm. Shane made an embarrassing noise to Rosanov's mouth. "Did you bring everything?" Rosanov asked. "Yes," Shane said. He was pretty sure he had everything. Lube and condoms, right? "Good boy." "Fuck you." "Yes." His hand slid inside Shane's shorts and pulled out. Shane slipped a hand in between their bodies so he could rub his hand over the front of Rosanov's shorts. Rosanov kissed him hard and ground his crotch against Shane's, holding himself up with one hand planted next to Shane's head. Shane moaned at the feel of Rosanov's hips and pelvis rolling against him. "He's going to fuck me." His whole body tensed up, Rosanov noticed. "Relax." He breathed against Shane's ear. "You will like this." "Yeah," Shane said, his voice strained. "Just..." Rosanov pushed off him for a moment so he could quickly rid himself of his briefs. Shane did the same. When he returned his eyes to Rosanov, he was struck by him. And he knew it was a decent size, but looking at it now, with the idea that it was supposed to somehow fit inside of him, he must have been wearing his anxiety all over his face. Rosanov laughed. "It will fit." Shane blushed furiously, which made Rosanov laugh more. "Trust me, where is the stuff?" Shane, grateful for something to do other than stare at Rosanov's cock in horror, reached over and opened the nightstand drawer. "I've got, lube. I ordered it online. It's supposed to be the best for this." "Ass fucking." Shane rolled his eyes. "You sweet talk all your sex partners like this. I'm very charming." He took the bottle from Shane and inspected it. "I have condoms too," Shane said. He pulled a strip of them out of the drawer. Rosanov raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure that will be enough?" "Alright, look." Rosanov grinned, that sexy goddamn lopsided grin, and Shane laughed too. He watched as Rosanov poured a good amount of lube on his fingers, then rubbed those fingers around. Shane huffed. "It's cold. You could have warmed it up a bit." "Shh, relax." Shane had something smart to say back to him, but it dissolved on his tongue as Rosanov rubbed his thumb over Shane. And Shane's fingers grabbed at the bedding. Rosanov gently rolled and tugged. He was so confident, but so careful. The combination was making Shane throw up his son? Rosanov shrugged. Sure, he was one. Oh, girls too, Hollander. You have not done this with a girl. Shane had never really wanted to do anything with a girl that was complicated, or that would make things take longer. No, he said. Rosanov stilled both of his hands. You have had sex before? Yes. He asked. Yes, God. Okay. Rosanov went back to stroking Shane's cock and dancing his fingers closer to Shane's opening. You really think I haven't? Shane was outraged. Rosanov shrugged. I've had plenty of sex, Rosanov. Lots. Fine. Shane didn't like how amused Rosanov looked, but he did like it when Rosanov poured more lube over his fingers and began to... He sucked in a breath and his whole body shuddered. Just relax, Mr. Lots of Sex, Rosanov said. I will make sure you are ready for me. Shane wanted to scowl at him, but in truth he was sort of charmed by the level of care Rosanov was showing. But Shane was still at least 35% terrified. Rosanov kept gently brushing his fingers over Shane's hole, while at the same time lazily. Together, it all felt wonderful. Shane felt his body release a lot of the tension he had been holding, and he floated a bit on the good feelings that were coursing through him. It was so good, he could almost forget to be embarrassed about where Rosanov was touching him. Good? Rosanov asked. Shane sighed. And then he felt... He clenched in response. Sorry. Shane winced, then took a breath. He didn't know how this worked. He had done a little to pin him alone, in private. This was... He's okay, Rosanov said in a low, soothing rumble. We will go slow. Yes. Thank you, Shane mumbled. The other thing about the private sessions was that Shane had been kind of bad at it. At least, he had been pretty sure he had been doing something wrong. It hadn't felt bad necessarily, but it hadn't been mind-blowing either. Rosanov dipped his head into it. Shane felt himself relax each. And then, oh. Shane arched and gasped. Holy shit. Rosanov pulled his mouth off him and smirked. Good. Yes. He rubbed his fingertip again over it himself before when he had been alone, but Rosanov seemed to know exactly where it was and what to do with it. Shane squeezed his eyes shut and bit his lip. If he hadn't, he was going to do something embarrassing, like whimper. The combination. If this continued, you gotta just wait a minute, Shane rasped out. Rosanov stopped immediately. Okay, he asked. Yeah, very, okay, too, okay, Rosanov used the break time as an opportunity to get... We do not have to, Rosanov said, noticing Shane's face. I want to, Shane said quickly. Too quickly. Rosanov nodded and reached for the lube and the condoms. He got himself ready and then returned his attention to Shane. Shane felt 2 fingers. There was less burning this time. Stroke yourself, Rosanov instructed. Shane nodded and obeyed. Rosanov let out a low noise that sounded like a growl. Turn over, he said. Shane got on his hands and knees, because that's how this worked, right? He was pretty sure. He had watched about 40 seconds of gay porn once before he'd gotten embarrassed and closed his laptop. Now, he wished he had endured a little longer, if only for research purposes. He felt Rosanov's hands grab his thighs and hauled back until his knees were at the end of the bed. Rosanov put one foot on the mattress next to Shane's knee and placed a hand firmly on Shane's hip, and then Shane could feel it. He clenched his eyes shut and braced himself for pain. Slow and careful, but Shane's whole body trembled anyway. The pain was there, but not as sharp as Shane had been expecting. The pressure was the most overwhelming sensation. Shane was struck with the sudden, horrific thought that Rosanov would become stuck inside him. Oh, Jesus, they would have to call 911 or something. Shane forced himself to take a breath and pushed images of doctors trying to separate them while all of Rosanov's teammates watched out of his mind. Okay, Rosanov asked again. He ran a hand over Shane's back, slow and soothing. Yeah, Shane said. His voice sounded strained. Rosanov pulled out a little. Rosanov's fingers were digging hard enough into Shane's hips to leave marks. He was hauling Shane back against him as he pounded into him. Shane lifted a hand and up to his own mouth so he could bite his knuckles to keep from screaming out. This, he realized, was why people were so wild about sex. He had never, ever felt like this with anyone before, and of course, Ilya Rosanov, all of 19 years old, fucked with the confidence and skill of like a sex god. Shane chanced taking his hand out of his mouth so he could wrap it around. He wished he put a towel down or something. He knew he was going to feel bad about that, but not enough to do anything about it now. Come on, Olinter, Rosanov growled. Rosanov, who did not care at all about the poor hotel maids. Fuck, Shane gritted out. He was so dazed by his own orgasm that he almost didn't register when Rosanov didn't quite wrap his brain around that fact. Then, to Shane's dismay, Rosanov collapsed on top of him, crushing Shane and the mess all over his chest into the mostly clean bedding. Now the bed's all dirty, Shane complained before he could stop himself. What? Rosanov said sleepily. Shut up. Shane closed his eyes and enjoyed the weight of Rosanov on top of him. Eventually, Rosanov rolled off and went into the bathroom to clean up. Shane shifted carefully to his back, already feeling the pain that was going to make it hard to sit down tomorrow. With Rosanov safely out of the room, Shane grinned stupidly at the ceiling. He was maybe happier than he should be that his most successful sexual experience to date was with Ilya Rosanov. The smile faded as he wondered how in hell he was ever going to experience this again, because he couldn't keep letting Rosanov fuck him, obviously, and he wasn't sure how to safely find other men to do it. Hit the showers, Holender, Rosanov said as he left the bathroom. I will cut the rest and leave. Oh, Shane said. Of course he was going to leave. What the fuck had Shane been expecting? He stood up. Yeah, okay, well. Rosanov put one hand on Shane's shoulder in a fairly condescending way. His lips were twitched up in an irritating little smile. What's fun? He said. Yeah, thanks, I guess. Rosanov nodded, then turned to pick up his scattered clothing. Shane went to the bathroom, closing the door behind him. When Shane left the bathroom, freshly showered and wearing a towel, Rosanov was gone. There was no trace of the man, other than the messed up bed sheets. Shane grimaced at them, then pulled off the top sheet and dropped it on the floor. He imagined that hotel maids probably dealt with worse shit than this all the time. He'd leave a big tip. He dropped the damp towel beside the soiled bedding and got himself dressed. He wasn't going to spend the night here. He made sure he removed everything he had brought into the room, then dropped a $50 bill on the dresser for the maid and left to go back to his apartment, alone. Chapter 8. June 2011, Las Vegas. It couldn't have been a closer race. It was the night of the NHL awards in Las Vegas, and all anyone had been talking about leading into it was who would win the Rookie of the Year award. Both Shane Hollander and Ilya Rosanov had scored over 50 goals. In fact, they had each scored exactly 67 goals. Both men had helped their teams reach the playoffs for the first time in years, though both had been eliminated in the first round. The two men had been the most talked about players in the league all season, sparking fierce debate among fans and the press about which of them was the better player. Shane knew that it was impossible to definitively answer that question, but being named Rookie of the Year would certainly feel good. Rosanov brought something out in him. Shane wasn't the type of guy who needed to be the best player on the team. He just always was, and maybe that was it. Maybe Shane had been a little bit bored before Ilya Rosanov came along. Rosanov was a lot of things, but he wasn't boring. He frustrated Shane on the ice and flustered him off the ice. Shane wanted to cross-check him in the mouth and then kiss it better. He wanted to forget about him, and he wanted to play every game against him. He wanted to win this fucking Rookie of the Year award. He wanted to rub it in Rosanov's face. He wanted to rub himself on Rosanov's face. The Canadian rock band on stage finally finished their song, and a B-list celebrity walked out on stage holding an envelope. This was it. Shane's mother put her hand on his arm. She was as nervous as he was, maybe more. Shane gave her a weak smile and waited. The reception afterwards was as raucous as anyone could expect a Vegas hotel banquet hall packed with professional hockey players to be. Most of the guys were pretty drunk, but Shane couldn't have gotten drunk even if he had been legally old enough to order a drink in Nevada, because he was faced with an unending parade of people slapping him on the back and congratulating him. Some even tousled his hair. The only person Shane hadn't seen that night was Ilya Rosanov. Secretly, Shane had been searching for him all night. Half the times he'd been talking to someone, he'd been looking over their shoulder. He never even caught a glimpse of their golden brown curls, Restless and not wanting to rejoin the party, he decided he may as well check it out. He took the elevator to the top. There was a trio of loud, drunk girls in the elevator with him. He pressed himself into the back corner and fixed his eyes on the glowing floor numbers as the elevator ascended. "Oh my God, is it your wedding day?" One of the girls asked him suddenly. "Pardon?" "The tuxedo," she said. "Did you get married today?" "Oh, no." "He doesn't have a ring," one of her friends hissed. They all erupted into giggles. Shane turned his eyes back to the numbers above the doors. They weren't moving fast enough. "Are you going to Strasbourg?" the first girl asked. "To where?" "Stratosphere," she said again, more slowly. "Stratosphere," one of her friends explained. "The bar on the roof." "There's a bar on the roof." They all laughed again. "You are so cute," the friend said. They nodded and giggled some more. "Come to the bar with us." "I can't, sorry." Jesus, this was a long elevator ride. By the time they finally reached the top, the girls had forgotten about him. They stumbled out of the elevator and turned right, presumably in the direction of the rooftop bar. Shane turned left. There was a lot of noise coming from the bar, pulsing music and loud, drunken voices. On the other side of the roof, there was a quiet corner that looked out over the city. It was a place that Shane guessed was normally used for weddings. It was empty now. Almost empty. Shane didn't see him at first. All black in his tuxedo, with his head bent down over the railing, Rosanov blended right into the darkness. Then he raised his head and let out a white cloud of smoke. "It's not worth jumping over," Shane said, moving to stand just behind him. Rosanov turned. He didn't even seem surprised to see Shane. He took another long drag of a cigarette, then said in a tight voice, "Is the party over then?" "No, I just needed some air." Rosanov exhaled. The smoke swirled around his face and then floated up into the desert sky. "Such an exciting night for you." "I guess." Rosanov rolled his eyes. "I guess. It could have gone to either one of us." "It went to you." "Yeah, well, you know, who knows how they decide these things." Shane wasn't sure why he was even saying this stuff. He didn't need to apologize for anything. He'd earned that fucking trophy. "So you're just soaking up here all night then? It bothers you so much that I won?" Rosanov took another drag and turned back to the view. He said something that Shane couldn't hear. "What was that?" Shane asked, moving to stand beside him against the rail. "Not everything is about you, Hollander." He didn't look at Shane at all when he said it. His voice hadn't been angry. He just sounded tired and sad. Shane studied his profile. His own anger left him, and he found himself caring about Ilya Rosanov, which was an odd sensation. "So what is it then?" Rosanov dropped the butt of a cigarette on the ground and stamped it out. He laughed a little, without any humor at all. "Oh, what do you want, Hollander?" "Nothing. I just wanted some air to see the view." "Well," Rosanov said, sweeping a hand through the air in front of them, "here is a view." Shane's eyes turned toward the blanket of city lights that sprawled beneath them, but they quickly found their way back to Rosanov's face. He saw the clench into Rosanov's jaw and the hardness of his eyes. "I go back to Russia in 3 days." "Oh." They were both silent for a long time. Shane wasn't sure if Rosanov had more to tell him or not. He decided not to push. It wasn't like they were friends. "I should get back," Shane said after several minutes of gazing down at the city. "My parents might still be at the party." "Your parents?" Rosanov said. "Right. I guess I'll see you next season." Shane stuck out his hand. Rosanov looked at it, then he turned his head left and right, looking all around them. A split second later, Shane found himself pushed back from the railing against a wall. Rosanov's mouth was pressed hard against his, and his hands gripped his arms roughly, fingers digging into his biceps. Shane felt panicked. This was super dangerous and stupid and confusing, and Shane kissed him back just as angrily, because fuck this guy for doing shit like this, hiding away all night on a fucking rooftop, smoking a goddamn cigarette in the dark like the worst cliche of a brooding heartthrob, making Shane feel bad for winning an award that he completely fucking deserved, and then, on a whim, pressing Shane against a wall and kissing him like he would die without Shane's mouth on him, kissing him until Shane's senses were full of hard muscle pressed against him and the taste of cigarette and the slick heat of Rosanov's tongue in his mouth. What the fuck? Shane grabbed Rosanov's lapels and shoved him back. They couldn't do this here at all. Shane looked frantically around them. There was no one, but Jesus, there could have been. Rosanov leaned in to kiss Shane again, and Shane dodged him. "No," he said. "No way, not here. What's wrong with you?" Rosanov gave him that crooked grin that did absurd things to Shane's stomach. "We can't," Shane said. He meant it, but it hurt to say. "I have to go." "You should go to bed, Rosanov." The smile disappeared. "See you next season," Rosanov said. Then he turned and walked toward the elevators. Shane waited a few minutes so they wouldn't have to ride down together. Next season would be different. He was going to end this stupid thing between them and focus on his game. I'm happy to announce to you, we've made it to part 2. Oh yeah. We're not gonna talk about how I have a different outfit on. Chapter 9. December 2013, 36,000 feet over Pennsylvania. Tap, 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 tap. Ilya could hear Ryan Price's foot drumming against the floor, even with an empty seat between them, even though Ilya was wearing headphones and watching a very loud Fast and Furious movie. Ilya glanced over. Price's knee was bouncing, jostling the paperback novel he was balancing, open and upside down, on his thigh. Price was gripping both armrests and his eyes were closed. He looked bad. And he was definitely going to drop that book on the floor, and then he would lose his place. Ilya sighed, hit pause on the movie, and removed his headphones. He didn't know Price very well. No one did, but he had only joined the team at the start of the season. He was a gigantic defenseman, but his real position on the ice was enforcer. His job was to make sure no one interfered with the more talented players. Ilya could take care of himself, but playing with guys like Price mean he didn't have to. Ilya talked shit on the ice, got under other guys' skin, and then Ryan Price had to take their punches. Pretty sweet deal for Ilya. Price, he said. Yo, book. No response. Price, Ilya said again. Still nothing, so Ilya reached out and poked his arm. You okay? Price's eyes flew open and he jumped a little, causing his book to tumble to the floor. Ilya watched it fall in dismay. He had failed. Sorry, Price said. Was I tapping my foot? Yes. Sorry, Price said again. Just, nervous flyer, sometimes. Ah, Ilya bent and retrieved the book. He glanced at the cover before handing it back. Anne of Green Gables. Wasn't that a children's book for girls or something? You lost your place. Price gave a thin smile. It's okay, I've read it before. It's kind of just, I bring it on planes as kind of a comfort thing. Ilya could not figure this guy out. He was even taller than Ilya and much bulkier, with shoulder-length red hair and a beard that made him look like a Biker King member. He could knock a guy out with one punch. One of the toughest opponents in the league were scared to face Price in a fight. Is it the red hair? Ilya asked. He didn't understand Price, but he could at least try to help him calm down. Anne of Green Gables. Price stared at him like he had no idea what he was talking about, and then he laughed. It was quiet and uneasy, but it was still a laugh. Yeah, maybe. Ilya was pretty sure. Price's 4th NHL season, but he had played for 3 different teams already. He was quiet in the dressing room, scary on the ice, and clearly a nervous wreck on planes, so Ilya imagined he didn't make friends easily. Are you like this every flight? Ilya asked. He couldn't imagine what that would be like. Price was definitely in the wrong line of work if he hated flying. Price shook his head. Not every flight. I mean, yes, I'm always nervous, but not always this bad. His cheeks flushed, as if he hadn't meant to even admit that he was more terrified than usual. They were en route to Montreal from Raleigh, North Carolina, which wasn't a particularly long flight, but it had been a turbulent takeoff. Maybe that had been the difference. Ilya didn't really want to talk about it, and he figured Price didn't want to either. So he gestured toward his iPad. Fast 5. Have you seen it? Yeah, I think so. Is that the one with the bank safe chase scene? Yes, it's the best one. Ilya flipped down the table for the unoccupied seat between them and moved his iPad onto it. He only had the one set of headphones, but he always had subtitles on. It helped to improve his English. He handed Price the headphones, figuring he could use a fully immersive distraction. Oh, Price ran a hand through his bushy hair. It's okay. I will tell you pilots as we are crashing. The joke was a risk, but it paid off. Price snorted and took the headphones. Thanks. They watched the movie, Price listening and Ilya reading, and Price's leg remained still for the rest of the flight. He even asked the flight attendant for a Coke, which had to be a good sign. When Ilya got tired of reading movie dialogue, he stared out the window into blackness. He had, in truth, been trying to distract himself with the movie because heading to Montreal always put him on edge. It wasn't nerves, it was something else. Anticipation, maybe. He didn't want to say excitement. They would play tomorrow night, their second game of the season. Montreal had been in Boston for their season opener in October. Boston had won in overtime, and Hollander had been in a terrible mood when he'd shown up at the room Ilya had booked in the hotel down the street from where Montreal was staying. Ilya liked it when Hollander was angry. He liked it when Hollander took out his frustrations on Ilya's body. He liked him cursing him as he fucked Ilya's mouth. These were the kinds of thoughts that Ilya had been trying to distract himself from with the Fast and Furious was certainly in no position to fault someone for that. The following evening, Montreal. I'm telling you right now, JJ said. If fucking Rosanoff starts shit with you tonight, I'm taking him out. Shane pulled his shoulder pads over his head and began securing them in place. If you go for Rosanoff, Ryan Price is gonna go after you. Price, I'll send that dumb motherfucker crying back to where the fuck he's from. Nova Scotia, I think. I'm just saying. JJ pointed his shin guard at Shane for emphasis. Rosanoff gives you trouble. I'm ending him, price or no price. Shane politely ignored the fear that JJ was trying not to show. JJ was one of the biggest players in the league and can handle himself in a fight, but Ryan Price was a fucking terror. Price was just one of the things that made these games against Boston extra tense. Montreal was a city that buzzed with excitement about their hockey team all winter. You could feel the electricity in the air every home game day, and whenever Boston was in town, Shane felt like the city was pulled as tight as he was. Every cell in his body sparked with the need to get on the ice and face Rosanoff, and when the games were over, he pulsed with a different kind of need. A loud bark of laughter interrupted Shane's thoughts. Hayden thrust his phone in his face. Hey, look at what the fans are doing outside. It was a video posted to Twitter of a group of people outside the arena burning what appeared to be an effigy of Ilya Rosanoff. Well, that's a bit much, Shane said. JT grabbed the phone. This is happening now. A few minutes ago, Hayden said. Beautiful. Love it. Hayden took his phone back and studied the screen. They didn't make the dummy ugly enough. Sure, Hayden. They probably burned effigies of me in Boston, Shane said. Oh yeah, they totally have. Here, let me go to YouTube. Yeah, no, I actually am trying to focus on winning a hockey game right now. No YouTube, please. The team's PR manager, Marcel, came into the dressing room and Shane sighed. Shane, Marcel said, NBC wants to talk to you. You good? Sure, I'll be out in a sec. The broadcasters always wanted to talk to Shane before the games, especially before games against Boston. He tried to think of a new and exciting way of answering the question, what does Montreal have to do to win tonight? As he made his way to the hallway outside the dressing room. Last question, Shane. What does Montreal have to do to win tonight? Shane put on his best thinking face to give the impression that he certainly hadn't expected this question. Get the puck to the net, take shots, stay out of the penalty box, score more goals than the other team before the game ends. We're in good shape tonight. Everyone is healthy, so I think we're definitely going to make it tough for Boston. Thank you, Shane, and good luck tonight. Thanks, Chris. Shane tried not to begrudge these interviews. Whenever he had to do one, which was often, he would think of the kids who were watching. He used to love seeing his favorite stars interviewed on television before and after the games. Back in the dressing room, he picked up his phone to send a quick text to his parents. He messaged them before every game. He saw that he had a message waiting for him, and it wasn't from his parents. Lily, how many times could you come in 1 hour? What the? This was dirty fucking pool, even for Rosanoff. They didn't text each other before the games, especially not about shit like that. He definitely wasn't going to write back, and he definitely wasn't getting rug strap. Fuck, he won. Now he was writing back. Ilya nearly choked when he saw Hollander's reply. Jane, I don't know, twice maybe. So fucking pure, so honest and sweet. You are very bad at sexting. Who taught you that word? Your mom. Okay, that was pretty stupid, but Hollander loved his mom, and that probably would bother him. Stop, I'll text you after the game. A few seconds went by. If you're lucky. Ilya snorted. Hollander was probably so proud of himself for that dig. Are you hard right now? No answer. Ah well. Ilya knew he was crossing the line with these texts, but it was just so damn fun to tease Hollander. He could just picture him now in the Montreal dressing room, blushing as he shoved his phone into a bag or something so no one would see it. He hoped Hollander was still mad about it later when they met in a hotel room. Ilya frowned at the abandoned-looking 3-story building the cab driver had delivered him to. He checked the address again and confirmed that it was the same as what Hollander had texted him. The fuck? Hollander's only instruction had been for Ilya to go around the back of the building, text him, and wait at the door. So Ilya did that, trying not to think about being murdered in a dark, empty lot behind a creepy building. If he believed Hollander had a diabolical bone in his body, Ilya would suspect he was about to be pranked. The back door opened a minute after Ilya sent the text, and all it revealed was Hollander, who glanced nervously around as if he was expecting a SWAT team to descend on them. Get in here, he said. Ilya stepped past him into a dimly lit stairwell, and Hollander locked the door behind them. What is this place? Ilya asked. Instead of answering, Hollander pushed him hard with both hands. Fuck you for texting me before the game, you asshole. Ilya grinned. You were hard, weren't you? How long the whole game? Hollander glared at him, then said, follow me. He led them up way too many stairs to the top floor, and then used a key to unlock another door. It opened to reveal a large loft apartment, only partially finished from the looks of it. The walls looked they had been freshly plastered, and had was a ladder leaning against one wall and an open box of tools beside it. The kitchen area had a brand new countertop and cupboards, but no appliances. Is this your place? Ilya had never been to Hollander's home. It had always been hotel rooms before. The idea excited him. No, I mean, I don't live here, but yes, I own it. You will move here. No, it's just an investment or whatever, and I thought it could be a safe place to meet. Hollander was damn cute and was embarrassed. Did you buy a building so we could have somewhere to Hollander? Ilya assumed he was trying to look stern, but the flush of his cheeks was ruining the effect. No, it's an investment. I'm having it renovated, then I'll sell the condos. And I already have a tenant lined up for the commercial space on the main floor. Wow, businessman. Hollander folded his arms. It did not make him look any more intimidating. Enough questions. We're not here to talk. Yes, where do you want me? On the ladder. On that pile of wood over there. In here, idiot. Hollander crossed the room and opened yet another door. This one led to a fully finished bedroom, like a really nice one. I kind of made the bedroom the priority and the bathroom so we could. But Ilya didn't let Hollander finish his sentence. He gripped Hollander's arms and pushed him back against the closet wall and kissed him. Hollander had bought them a fucking building. Ilya had been sure all summer that this would be the year Hollander would call it off, but he had thought the same thing last summer too, after the rookie seasons had ended with Hollander shoving Ilya away after they'd kissed on a Las Vegas rooftop. But then their teams had met for the first time that second season. Ilya had texted him a hotel room number, and Hollander showed up 20 minutes later. You were smoking, Hollander complained now, as he broke away from their kiss. Only one. You aren't supposed to be smoking. You aren't supposed to be talking. Ilya pushed Hollander's chest and knocked him flat onto his back on the bed. Ilya took a moment to gaze down on him, at his flushed cheeks and mussed hair, at the strip of exposed skin where his t-shirt had ridden up. Then Ilya pounced. They kissed in their usual combative style for a while, Hollander rolling them to pin Ilya down and attack his mouth before Ilya would flip them and regain control. Shirts came off, then pants, then socks and underwear. An hour, Ilya murmured. He was on top now, biting and licking his way along Hollander's collarbone. Then I have to go. Then hurry the fuck up. Ilya smiled against Hollander's skin. He was such a little brat. Ilya raised himself up and straddled Shane's waist, making sure to squeeze just a little too hard with his thighs. Lovely. You want this, Hollander? And, oh god, Ilya could see the war going on in Hollander's head. He could see how much he wanted to tell Ilya to fuck off and die, but more than that, he could see the way Hollander's tongue poked out to moisten his lower lip. Starving for it, yes, Hollander. Ilya slid forward, positioning his body closer to Hollander's face. To his mouth, Hollander's chest was heaving beneath him, and he glared up at Ilya with dark, intense eyes. It's okay, Ilya said soothingly. He tapped the head. You can take it. I hate you. Yes, I know. Show me. Hollander whispered, seemingly to himself. Then he parted his lips and licked the moisture off. Ilya's hand shot out and gripped the headboard. It seemed like a nice headboard, sturdy. He expected he'd find out exactly how sturdy soon enough. Hollander teased. And not nearly enough. Hollander growled, seemingly as frustrated with the angle as Ilya was, and pushed him down to the mattress before taking it. Ilya was not going to be able to endure for very long. Not if he also wanted to fuck Hollander in their allotted hour of time. But Hollander wasn't letting up. He tugged at Ilya, biting along his thigh. Hollander, he warned. He was flying way too high, too fast. Hollander moaned, or maybe he tried to form a vibrations that Ilya really didn't need right now. Fuck, you have to stop if you want me to fuck you. Hollander ripped his mouth away from Ilya, but then he went very still. Shit, oh god. Ilya fell. And then he buried his face in Ilya's shoulder. Fuck, Hollander. I'm sorry, he groaned. I can't believe I just... You didn't even touch me. And Ilya just laughed, because it was fucking funny. Don't fucking laugh at me. Been a while, Ilya teased. Hollander kept his forehead planted on Ilya's shoulder. was doing. Ilya flopped onto his back again and folded his arms behind his head. Go for it. And Hollander did, but this time he was far less frantic and took his time. Ilya enjoyed every second of it. Ilya would be lying if he said Hollander had the most talented move. He was so eager to please, so determined to be good at this. For Ilya, there was something very sweet about the way Hollander, like he wasn't just trying to get it over with. Even though Hollander had already had his own orgasm, he seemed to legitimately enjoy making Ilya feel good. Ilya always did feel good with Hollander. He didn't want to say it was better than with anyone else, but it was different. And not only because Hollander was a man. Ilya hadn't been with a man who wasn't Hollander in, over a year. Almost 2, maybe. But that wasn't it. Hollander glanced up at him, and Ilya smiled and stroked his hair. The clock was ticking, and Ilya really did need to leave, so he gently held Hollander's head and guided him. It's good, Hollander. Just like that. Hollander moaned and dug his fingers into Ilya's thighs, keeping the pace with his mouth that Ilya had set. The familiar, exhilarating pressure of impending release gripped Ilya's body, the high that he couldn't stop chasing, and he squeezed his eyes shut. I want to see it. Seconds later, Ilya erupted. He cried out, much louder than usual. Holy shit, Hollander. Ilya gasped when he was able to speak again. I'm dead. You've killed me. Hollander was sitting up now and staring at the mess on Ilya's stomach. That was really hot. Yes. I'm glad we were in an empty building where no one could hear you. And then Ilya felt the rare and unwelcome sensation of his cheeks heating in embarrassment. He didn't usually yell like that when he was coming. He didn't want to think about it, so he said, I have to go. Alright. 15 minutes later, they were waiting at the bottom of the stairs for Ilya's taxi to arrive. It's a nice building, Ilya said, because he hated the silence. You don't want to live here. No, but renovations might take a while, so I'll probably be able to use it for a bit. More silence, and then Hollander said, You must be excited for the Olympics in Russia. Yes, Ilya was excited, but thinking about the expectations of his home country, of his father, made his stomach hurt. It made him want a cigarette. Been dreaming of the Olympics my whole life, Hollander said. I can't wait. For what? A bronze medal? Fuck you, Ilya laughed. Hey, remember when you shot your load for like no reason at all? Hollander rolled his eyes, but Ilya could tell he was trying not to laugh. Oh my god, go to hell. Amazing trick. Your cab must be out there, right? Ilya put his hand on the door, but before he pushed it open, he leaned down and kissed Hollander quickly on the mouth. Good night, Hollander. Good night. Ilya was grinning like an idiot for the entire cab ride back to his hotel. Chapter 10. February 2014. Sochi, Russia. Shane Hollander. Shane nearly jumped at the sound of his name being bellowed behind him. He spun around and spotted 2 familiar faces approaching him. Carter Vaughn, yelling, and Scott Hunter, not yelling. Scott was the captain of Team USA's men's hockey team, and Carter was his teammate both here and in New York, where they played for the Admirals. Shane had been walking, alone, on the beach in Sochi. He had the rest of the day and night off, and had been at a bit of a loss of what to do. His parents had considered traveling to Russia, but had ultimately decided against it. For one thing, the travel arrangements and accommodations were a nightmare. Shane had convinced them that it really wasn't worth the hassle, and pointed out that they'd watched him compete in international tournaments since he was a teenager. And maybe he was being overly cautious, but there had been a lot of articles leading up to these games about possible security concerns, and he wanted to keep his parents safe. Shane had no idea what to expect before he'd arrived in Sochi. He'd never been to Russia before, and he wasn't sure this over-the-top spectacle was the best representation of Rosanov's homeland. He found himself wondering often about the pressure Rosanov was feeling. Being in the Olympics at all was thrilling and stressful enough for Shane without it being in his country. What's up, guys? He said as Carter and Scott caught up with him. Do you know there was going to be a beach here? What the fuck is this place, right? Carter laughed. No, there were fucking palm trees here. I thought Russia in the winter would be like cold. Congrats on your win last night, Scott said. Scott was a super nice guy. Carter was nice too, but Scott was like an angel who was really good at playing hockey. He looked like an angel. Blonde hair and blue eyes and built like a Navy SEAL who was also a model and maybe also a firefighter. Thanks, it was a pretty easy win, but I'll take it. These early games were all easy. Who are we playing next, Scotty? Fiji. Scott frowned at him. Denmark, and I don't want anyone being cocky about it. Yes, sir, Carter teased. Carter looked nothing like Scott with his dark skin and brown eyes, but he was just as attractive. The difference was that both snoring away on it. I don't snore. And the other has Sully, Eric Sullivan, and I don't even know that kid, but he's even bigger than Scott. I would like to find the Sochi 4 seasons. Shane laughed. I'm rooming with JJ and your teammate, Greg Huff. Well, Huff doesn't take up much space, Carter said, but JJ is a giant. He's not a fan of the beds either. What are your plans for tonight? Scott asked. I thought I'd watch some of the speed skating. Scott's face lit up. Yeah, that would be cool. I saw the men's figure skating short program is tonight too. Oh right, that's probably going to be packed. Those fucking guys are brave to be here, you know? Brave? Scott asked. Carter lowered his voice and glanced around the beach. Yeah, like 'cause of the gay thing, right? Some of those guys are risking their lives for real here. Brave as hell. Right, Scott said. He turned his gaze to the ocean. Shane knew about Russia's laws against homosexuality, but he'd been trying not to think too much about stuff like that. He just wanted to enjoy the Olympics, win the gold medal, and go home. But now he was thinking about Dev, a guy he trained with a bit from Ottawa, who was on the men's speed skating team, and who Shane knew was gay. He was here. Was he terrified? He must be. They should have beach volleyball at these games, Carter said cheerfully. Women's beach volleyball, that's exactly what the Winter Olympics needs, right? Shane nodded, but he was still thinking about Dev. And about Rosanov. Rosanov could take care of himself. This was his home turf. He would know how to keep safe. You still with us, Hollander? Shane blinked and looked at Carter and Scott. Sorry, what did you say? We were gonna check out the McDonald's in the athletes' village. Thought it might be fun. Wanna join us? I think I'm gonna text Rosanov. Try to lay eyes on him. Make sure he'd not been arrested for blowing a ski jumper or something. Relax a bit in my room. Still jet lagged, you know. You can relax in that room, Carter laughed. Good luck then. Do you have my number? Yeah, I have it. I'll see you guys later. Shane tried not to walk too quickly as they left, but he was suddenly desperate to make contact with Rosanov. The only problem was he had no idea where to find him. He sent a text. Having a good time? There. That was cool and casual, just a friendly. Hey, we're about the Olympics. Fun, right? Also, are you in jail? He waited all night for a reply, but none came. The Olympics were bullshit. Ilya had been on edge all week. It had been days of smiling for the Russian media and mingling with government officials who had made his skin crawl. Men and women who had supported their country's leader without question, and who expected Ilya to do the same. Ilya hadn't had any time to enjoy himself. He'd barely had time to focus on his game, and it showed. The Russian men's hockey team was a mess. These sorts of international tournaments were always awkward, with players being tossed together to form a dream team of superstars who had no idea how to play with each other. But this team was especially hopeless. Too many egos, too much pressure here in their home country, making tempers run high in the dressing room and on the ice. Too many stupid penalties being taken, too few goals being scored. They were already out of the running for a medal. Ilya just wanted it all to be over so he could go home. But when he started thinking of Boston as home. Tonight, Ilya's attendance was required, at a ridiculous gala, which was just a chance for the government to show off to foreign dignitaries. It was exactly the sort of event he couldn't stand, and making it worse was the fact that his father would be there. His father, who had only spoken to him this week to let him know how badly he had let Russia down, would be parading his famous son around the ballroom as if he was proud of him. But first, Ilya was expected to go to his father's hotel room. He wished he was strong enough to refuse. He wasn't, so he knocked on the hotel room door 5 minutes before 6 o'clock, because anything past 5 minutes early was late in his father's eyes. The door opened, and there was Grigory Rosanov in all his intimidating Shane frowned. Rosanov looked exhausted. He had dark rings under his eyes, and his face was very pale, and the most noticeable and alarming change was in his eyes. The playful spark that always made Rosanov's hazel eyes dance was just gone, extinguished. We are not anything, not here, Hollander. Rosanov's eyes darted around them as if searching for threats. It was the first time that Shane had ever seen Rosanov look uncomfortable. Are you okay? Shane asked. He spoke as quietly as he could over the noise of the arena. Please go. You didn't answer my text, and I thought, suddenly all the ways Shane might finish that sentence seemed stupid. I thought you were in danger. I thought you were in jail. I thought you were sad. No, I didn't answer your boring text. Now please go. Rosanov was being an asshole, which was nothing new, but he didn't seem to mean it. In fact, Shane would bet that Rosanov would actually really like him to stay. He looked like he could use a hug. But obviously Shane wasn't going to hug him here, so he just nodded and walked away. He didn't really have the time to think about Rosanov anyway. Canada was going to be playing in the gold medal game the following evening against either America or, if Finland lost this game, Sweden. Rosanov and his team was done, and Shane knew that had to feel awful. Team Russia had just been terrible. It wasn't Rosanov's fault, but Shane knew he would be beating himself up about it. Hell, Shane would be beating himself up if it were his team. By the time Shane returned to his seat, Rosanov was gone. Chapter 11. June 2014, Las Vegas. At the end of the season, the league asked Rosanov and Hollander to present together at the NHL Awards. Because the league was cute, they asked him to present the award for most sportsmanlike. Shane was waiting backstage in his tuxedo, alone. No one knew where Rosanov was. They were supposed to walk out on stage together in 3 minutes. Where the hell is Rosanov? A panicked director asked. I don't know, Shane said. We don't exactly talk much. The director stormed away, swearing. Shane hadn't been lying. He hadn't spoken to Rosanov off the ice since the brief words they shared at the Olympics. The humiliation of not even making it to the bronze medal game had seemingly been enough to cause Rosanov to not even want to look at Shane anymore, let alone talk to him, touch him, kiss him. Shane had felt sorry for him, but then Rosanov turned the shame of losing so horribly in the Olympics into fuel that propelled him and the Bears all the way to the Stanley Cup. Shane had watched that final game with Hayden and some of the other guys who had stuck around Montreal after their team had been eliminated in the third round. Shane had been sick with jealousy, but had also been undeniably proud when he'd watched Ilya Rosanov lift the cup over his head and roar. There had been tears streaming down Rosanov's face as he'd hollered, and Shane had seen that this was more than the pride of being the best player on the best team in the NHL that year. Rosanov had proved something to somebody. Shane had been shocked to find tears in his own eyes as he'd watched the raw emotion explode out of Rosanov. It was as if, with every heave of the cup over his head, Rosanov was saying, You, I did it, you, to someone. Maybe to Shane, but he didn't think so. He hoped not. The last time they had really spoken had almost been 6 months ago before the Olympics, and Shane hadn't actually done all that much talking. What he had done was let Rosanov push him to his... Shane tugged at his shirt collar now and tried to will his blush away. Shane whipped around and was faced with Ilya Rosanov looking so good in his tux. He'd grown his hair out over the past season, and that night he'd been wearing it slicked back and tied in a little bun. He looked like a European fashion model. Rosanov, what the fuck? We're on in like 5 seconds. 50 seconds. We are fine. Does it matter to you that everyone backstage has been having a heart attack looking for you? Not really. Shane's hands rolled into fists at his sides. Where were you, anyway? Busy. Oh yeah, with who? Rosanov just smirked. We're on. He strode out onto the stage, leaving Shane to stupidly scramble to catch up with him. you're not going to suck my dick. Shane's eyes narrowed. Fuck you, why don't you suck mine? He chased a finger over Shane's clenched jaw, so gently it made Shane close his eyes and part his lips involuntarily. Maybe ask nice. Shane wanted to tell him to go fuck himself, but instead, to his mortification, he heard himself say, please. Rosanov raised an eyebrow. You want me to kneel on the dirty bathroom floor? You have to ask nicer than that, Hollandor. Please. Shane gritted out. Get on your knees. Rosanov pressed his palm. Tuxedo pants, making Shane gasp, tilted his head back against the wall. Rosanov leaned in and brushed his lips over Shane's ear. No. He let go of Shane and stepped back. What? Shane sputtered. No. I will not do anything to you in here. We will go back out there and sit on our seats and then go to the party. And then, when you have been waiting all night for it, you will come to my hotel room and I will maybe do more than suck your dick. Shane felt dizzy and angry and kind of impressed by Rosanov's English. It had really come a long way. You're really gonna leave me like this? Yes, for now. Fine, Shane grumbled. Oh, Rosanov cooed with mock sympathy. I will make you a deal. If you win MVP tonight, I will blow you, fuck you, whatever you want. Shane swallowed, and if you win, a wicked smile unfurled across Rosanov's face. I will let you know. He put his hand on the door handle and was about to leave when he quickly turned and grabbed the front of Shane's jacket. He kissed him roughly, then let him go. Good luck tonight, he said, and then he was gone. Shane left the party as early as he could. He wished he had the willpower to stay later, to make Rosanov wait. He wished he had the strength to stand Rosanov up. He'd been on edge for hours, half-hearted and buzzing with need. He had a few beers, which was a few more than he usually had, and his brain was only able to focus on his desire to get off as soon as possible. He had a text with Rosanov's room number, and he'd seen him slip out of the party a few minutes ago. They hadn't spoken since the bathroom backstage. Rosanov had won. Of course he had won, and now Shane had to find out what exactly he wanted from him. They had done everything. Shane was pretty sure they'd done everything at this point. Check. Of course. Yes, but only with Shane bottoming. Shane couldn't see Rosanov wanting to change that up. He hoped not, anyway. Shane sent Rosanov a text as he approached the door, and he heard it click open just before he arrived. He entered quickly. Rosanov had an enormous suite booked at the Las Vegas casino where the award ceremony was held. He stood in the middle of it now, most of his tuxedo crossed his long legs and leaned back in his chair, comfortable as anything. Close your eyes, he suggested. Pretend you are alone. How do you start? Shane exhaled and closed his eyes. He tried to ignore the smirking Russian in the corner as he placed a nervous hand on his own stomach. He rubbed slow patterns over his skin, letting his nerves wake up. He heard Rosanov shifting in his chair. Shane's lips curled up a bit. Maybe he still had some power here. If Rosanov wanted a show, he was going to get a show. He already found himself enjoying this. His fear was forgotten. He opened his eyes and looked directly at Rosanov, whose gaze was locked on Shane's crotch. His lips parted. Come on, Wallentor, he said in a low rumble. Show me. Shane lifted his hips, hooked his thumbs into his waistband, and tucked the underwear. There was loop in the drawer, Rosanov said, beside the bed. Get it for me. There. You, Rosanov. Rosanov stood without protest and retrieved the bottle of lube. He held it out to Shane, but when Shane reached for it, Rosanov pulled it away. He laughed at Shane's glare and tossed the bottle into the bed. Would you like to know? Rosanov asked as he settled himself back into his chair. How it feels. How what feels? He leaned forward, grinning like a shark. The cup. Do you want to know what it feels like to hold the Stanley Cup? Oh, fuck you. Rosanov laughed. I cannot describe it anyway. I'll find out for myself soon enough. Shane grumbled. Of course. No, show me how you like it, Hollander. That request, Shane thought, was almost sweet. Consider it. He removed his briefs completely and picked up the bottle. He made a show. Rosanov thought Shane was going to be chatty during this thing. He didn't know Shane very well. Shane would be surprised if he uttered 2 words. Himself too. He cracked an eye open and it seemed that Rosanov was just happy to watch. But he was leaning forward now and he looked a little flushed. Shane opened both eyes. He wanted to get off the bed and crawl on his knees to where Rosanov was sitting. He wanted to press his open mouth to them. He let out a broken ah sound and planted his feet flat on the bed, legs splayed, knees bent. Simultaneously mortified and excited, he reached for the lube. Yes, let me see you. We'll see. Shane got to work. It was undeniably humiliating to be splayed out on a bed like this. Shane's fingers, 2 knuckles deep in his own ass while Ilya Rosanov calmly sipped his vodka and watched everything like he was going to be tested on it later. The only thing that could make the situation more embarrassing would be, please, Shane gasped, begged, please, what? I need. He could tell that Rosanov was starting to lose his composure. He could see how his Adam's apple bobbed sharply as he swallowed, the way he ran his teeth over his bottom lip. What do you need, Hollander? You. Fuck me, please. Rosanov sucked in a breath, and then he stood and placed his glass on the side table. He slowly undid the last of his buttons and let the shirt fall to the floor behind him. He walked to the end of the bed, and Shane crawled to him, just like he'd imagined doing. He crawled along the mattress. Rosanov buried his fingers in Shane's hair and murmured something in Russian. Shane didn't know if Rosanov was saying something encouraging or reverent, or maybe he was calling Shane a slut. Shane felt a little slutty in that moment. Rosenoff was breathing heavily as he slicked himself with lube, and damn, Shane loved it when Rosenoff lost his ability to stay cool and collected. Rosenoff was loud, and if it hadn't been a ridiculously large Las Vegas hotel suite, Shane would have been worried about it, but he felt safe here, so he let himself go. Even though it was embarrassing to be this desperate for Ilya Rosenoff, Shane really hoped no one could hear them. There's no other word for it, and once again, he had made a mess of some hotel bed sheets. Was pressed against Shane's back as both men struggled to catch their breath. Jesus, Holendor, Rosenoff panted as he flopped to his back beside him. His hair had fallen out of its little ponytail and was clinging to his forehead in a damp swoop. Shane carefully flipped to his back, leaving the wet spot on the bed sheets between them. How about that vodka? Rosenoff laughed. Yes, give me a minute. Shane grinned. He knew he'd be at least a little mortified and ashamed later when he thought about that night, but at that moment, he was giddy. Rosenoff did eventually leave the bed, and after cleaning himself in the bathroom, brought Shane a damp washcloth and an ice-cold glass of vodka. He brought himself a cigarette and a lighter. He sat with his back against the headboard, one bent and the other outstretched, still naked, but for his gold chain and crucifix. He lit his cigarette, and Shane didn't even have the energy to lecture him about it, especially since he looked so goddamn sexy. Instead, Shane sipped his vodka, which was gross. He really didn't drink anything beyond beer very often. At least it was cold against his tongue. Are you heading back soon? Shane asked, just to make conversation. Back to Russia for the summer. Rosenoff exhaled a long stream of smoke. Yes. Oh, they were silent a moment. Then Shane couldn't help but ask, why? Rosenoff shrugged. It is home. But do you like going there? Rosenoff didn't answer. He took another drag of his cigarette and closed his eyes. I should sleep, he said finally. Oh, yeah, I should. I need to get going. Anyway. Yes. There was that shame Shane had been expecting. He got cleaned up in the bathroom, then went to the main room to retrieve his clothes. He put on the pants and the shirt and carried the rest of the tuxedo. Rosenoff didn't leave the bedroom. See you, Shane called out. Goodbye, Holendor. Rosenoff replied from the other room, and Shane left. He realized when he was back in his room that they hadn't even kissed. He also realized with horror that he regretted that. Round part 3. We'll do one more chapter. Chapter 12. October 2016. Philadelphia. Ilya had a man pinned under the weight of his body. The man was big, almost as tall as Ilya, and pressing back against him aggressively. Ilya wedged a knee between the man's thighs, holding him firmly in place. Off, asshole, the man growled. Ilya leaned on a martyr. Alright, let him go, Rosenoff, the referee said. I'll go holding if you don't back off right now. Ilya released the other man's jersey, raising his hands innocently. The man growled. He shoved Ilya before he skated away from the boards where Ilya had trapped him. That wasn't nice, Ilya called after him. Ilya could hear the boos and taunts from the crowd as he skated to the bench. Fuck you, Rosenoff. You're fucking pussy, Rosenoff. Go back to Russia, you piece of shit, etc. Ilya smiled to himself. He actually loved this. He loved being on the road and disappointing home crowds across North America. He loved the insults, the booing, and most of all, the sound of a crowd so gutted by his team's performance that they couldn't even bother to boo. A winded, humiliated crowd. That was Ilya's favorite sound. The crowd was still loud in Philadelphia. This was not an easy city to silence. He would have to work extra hard tonight to get that glorious, devastated quiet he craved. He sat on the bench next to Brad Hammersmith. Brad was a veteran forward. He was also about 100 years old. Making friends? Hammersmith asked. I'm playing hockey. Hammersmith snorted. A Philadelphia defenseman skated by the bench when the play had stopped. Keep it up and see what happens, Rosenoff, he threatened. I know what will happen. My team will win. Suck my dick, Rosenoff. Be the best blowjob of your life, sweetheart. Ilya winked at him. The other player grumbled. Ilya shrugged. It was half true. Maybe like 30% true. At that moment, the scoreboard screens showed a highlight from the Montreal versus Ottawa game that was also happening that night. Hollander had just scored a goal. Of course, Ilya watched the footage of Hollander Jesus, thanks. Sorry, congratulations. Hayden shot him an amused look. Hey, you sound super happy for me. Shane gestured to the stroller Hayden was pushing his 1-year-old son in, and then toward his twin 3-year-old girls who were peering into a touch tank. Well, yeah, Hayden said. I know, but Jackie's happy. She's bored, right? The nearby parent of a wobbly toddler glared at them. Sorry, Hayden said quickly to the offended party. Then to Shane he said, I gotta watch my language. Jackie always said so. Hazard of our occupation, as Shane said. I know, hey, Jade, sweetie, don't splash your sister. I need a swear jar or something at home. I don't think you can afford that. As a man without children or a wife, Shane was in the minority among his teammates. Most of the guys were married well before the age of 25. Hayden had married Jackie at 21, only after dating her for a year. Shane had been there the night they'd met. Hayden had dragged Shane and a couple of other guys out to a club where Hayden had met his future wife, and Shane had left to have one of the most embarrassing sexual encounters of his life with a very patient woman named Ophelia. But Jackie was great. Hayden had done well marrying her, and their kids were adorable, even if naming the twins Jade and Ruby was a choice. Thanks for coming with us, Hayden said, stooping to pick up the pacifier that his son, Arthur, had dropped on the ground. Hayden gave it a quick wipe on his shirt and plunged it back into Arthur's mouth. Shane made a disgusted face at Hayden and see. Jackie's sister is visiting and they wanted to go shopping and shit. Swear jar, Shane said. Right, shopping and stuff. Anyway, it's hard going anywhere with these 3 monsters, so I appreciate the help. My pleasure, man. Shane was sincerely enjoying himself. The biodome was a good place for him to go without getting mobbed. People were so distracted by the animals and by trying to wrangle their own children that they weren't bothering to look at the other adults in the room. Shane was also wearing a ball cap and a simple black jacket to try to blend in even better. So far, it was working. Oh shit, shoot. Looks like Ruby is trying to steal a starfish. Hayden nudged the stroller handles towards Shane. Here, you watch Arthur for a second, okay? He was darting toward the touch tank and the twins before Shane could reply. Shane knelt in front of the stroller and smiled at the sleepy-eyed little boy. Hey buddy, he said, you having a good time? Arthur reached out and grabbed the front of Shane's ball cap. Let's go see some penguins, Hayden said. He had returned carrying one twin under each arm. Penguins, both girls squealed at once. Penguins, Shane said, clapping his hands and trying to mimic the girls' excitement. Hayden rolled his eyes. Alright, children, follow your big brother Shane. He set the girls down, and they each took one of Shane's hands. Shane's heart clenched. Their hands were so tiny. In the Antarctic room, Hayden and Shane were able to sit on a bench with the stroller parked next to them while the twins ran up to the glass to look at the penguins. So, Jackie has this friend. Hayden said, oh, jeez, here I go again. No, Shane said. I know, but listen, she's gorgeous, and she's cool. She's a yoga instructor. You like yoga, right? I'm sure she's great, but I'm really not interested in dating anyone right now. Why on earth not? You're young, you're rich, you're famous, you look like you. Shane gave him a flirty look. Hayden, do you find me attractive? Look, pal, if I was a woman, I'd be all over you. Shane laughed. In truth, he could think of worse scenarios than having Hayden pike all over him, but he wasn't going to tell him that. Besides, Hayden was his best friend. He never had anything but platonic feelings for him, blonde hair, keen eyes, and cleft chin aside. So this friend, Hayden tried again. Samantha is her name. I think you would really like her. Shane buried his face in his hands, almost knocking his own ball cap off. Please stop trying to set me up on dates, Hayden. I just want to see you happy, and I just want to see you have 100 kids so you can know my pain. Shane scrubbed his hands over his face and looked up to see Jade and Ruby shoving each other in front of the class. Fuck it, I gotta break this up, Hayden grumbled, already walking toward them. Shane sighed. Tell your dad to lay off my love life, alright, Arthur. But Arthur had fallen asleep. Shane imagined telling Hayden that he was into men. He knew Hayden wouldn't shun him or anything. Maybe he wasn't the most worldly guy, but he wasn't a bigot either. At worst, it would probably make things awkward between them. Maybe it wouldn't, but Shane didn't want to risk finding out. There really wasn't any reason to, anyway. Shane probably would meet a nice girl someday and settle down, and then his occasional attraction to men would be moot. His imagination continued to wander, conjuring a scenario where he told Hayden that he'd been hooking up with Ellie Rosenoff since their hooky season. The hypothetical look on Hayden's face made Shane snort out loud. He quickly covered his mouth and turned to look at Arthur as if to suggest that the sleeping toddler had made the weird noise. Excuse me, are you Shane Hollander? There was some footage of Hollander kayaking alone in the lake, looking serene and stupid as he gazed around at nature. His voice played over the footage, talking about the place healing his soul or some dumb shit. There were sweeping shots of some of the rooms of the cottage, a spacious, high-ceilinged living area with a leather sectional sofa and some very Canadian-looking plaid throw pillows and blankets, a modern, high-end kitchen with a large island in the middle, a pool table and a bar, a gym that had a wall of floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the lake. Then, without warning, they cut to a shot of Hollander doing yoga on the dock. I got into yoga last year, and I think it's really helped me focus. It's definitely increased my flexibility. Hollander's voice played over a lingering shot of him holding some ridiculous pose. Jesus Christ, he was so f***ing boring, Ellie muttered. Hollander did look flexible, though. The segment went on a little longer. Hollander talked about how important it was for him to have a place close to his parents. How he had offered to build them a new cottage, too, but they refused. He laughed when he said that. When he laughed, his nose crinkled, and Elia's stomach flipped. Elia wondered if Hollander had ever fucked anyone in that cottage. Probably. Probably some nice, wholesome girl that he had met, canoeing, or whatever. Ilya had filmed one of these dumb things, too. He had taken the camera crew to the garage where he stored his collection of European sports cars. The segment had had a decidedly different vibe from this Hollander one. But that's the way it had been for over 6 seasons. Shane Hollander was the wholesome, heroic sweetheart, and Ilya Rosanov was the obnoxious rock star. They were polar opposites, according to any NHL analyst, and therefore destined to clash forever, neatly dividing hockey fans in the process. It's the way it should have been. Shane and Ilya were opposites in almost every way imaginable, but it was getting harder for Ilya to deny that there was something in his core that was drawn to Hollander. Instead of getting him out of his system with their hookups, each one just made him want more. It was dangerous stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching.